Application of paint, so where do you source application systems? How do you achieve adequate coverage, and testing's available? So again, there's a standard within the standards. Now, by the way, in the last couple of months, those standards have changed now. So these are now a little bit out of date, only by a few months, but what they're now doing is they're now speccing the roller that you apply it with. So not only is saying the system should be, a sealer and 2 top coats, they're also saying if you're spraying it, it's saying that the first coat or your sealer should be back-rolled and your final coat should be back-rolled. In the standard process of painting new buildings, that's primarily what happens anyway, but now their standard says first and last coat need to be back-rolled. When you're talking about exterior, basically it was a rule, if it's all water-based, stay with water-based. If it was oil-based, stay with oil-based. Gone now. It can be a mixture of either, but primarily they're still recommending a priming coat and 2 top coats. I will say, go back to the very first slide, follow the manufacturer's directions. So on Solargar, if they can say 3 coats thin down the first coat, you can do that and you're within what you would call a quality guarantee and an acceptable standard. MSDSs, okay, so what's an MSDS? It's basically giving you the physical and chemical properties of the product. They're available from all the manufacturers. By the way, any painters that are out there, even builders, you should have those MSDSs within your work health safety systems. If you're using a particular product, you need to have the MSDS on you or within your truck or whatever the case may be. But they're available from the manufacturers' websites. Paint and retail outlets will have them. Compared to the data sheet, what's the data sheet primarily designed for? Well, basically the data sheet is your back of your label on steroids. It gives you all the detail about how the product is, and this is actually the sheet that you're going to live and die by. So if you've got an inspection and they came out and measured certain aspects of your job, this is what they're going to measure it against, because this is what the paint company's going to do, and that's going to affect your Australian standards. One of the areas I want to draw your attention to is the application guide. And we'll just simply look at that. We'll flick through that. Basically, you can get, it'll tell you the types of tools to use and how to put it on. And you can look at the one thing that I probably want to focus on the most on this particular slide is the wet film thickness. That's the easiest thing to measure as you're going along. As a painter applies paint, they use a wet film guide. And basically that looks, they're all specified. You've got dry film thickness, but wet film is the one that you should focus on because it's the one you have control over at the time. So let's have a look. That's one by Dulux. Can I just have a show of hands of the painters who have got one of those? Okay, let me tell you, how much paint should you put on? 2 coats? No. Yes, 2 coats, but of a certain film thickness. So on average, they wash and wear about 55 to 65 microns per coat. Undercoats, 85 microns. The good thing is that we do actually go up and see Charlie a bit later after the show, and Charlie's got some wet film guides that Dulux have donated. You're more than welcome to have one for free. They're worth about $4. But let me tell you, you use those, you are now doing a paint to a standard that needs to be done. As I said before, you can see there's quite a different range. We came across one today where the primer was 100 microns.